The shows that I'm doing are for groups of friends, like sometimes groups of friends of like 10, 15 people. Every single individual is from a different country. They communicate through English among themselves. Couples that are from different countries. Like I fondly remember this couple I met in Munich. She was from Belarus, he was from Peru. It's like opposite sides of the world.
Welcome to Comedy with an Accent podcast. I'm your Taiwanese comedian, Guan Wen. I interview comedians who perform English stand-up comedy but who are not native English speakers, or they can have very distinct British regional accent. This podcast is all about comedy, about accent, about languages, and about the comedy technique. So stay tuned if you're interested. Hi everyone, this is the first episode of Season 2 of Comedy with an Accent podcast. If you have listened to my episode in Season 1, you know I rarely do a recording on my own to be the opening. Normally, I just edit from the interview with the comedians. I'm doing this today for a special reason, the interview with our guest, Victor Patrascan, which is a very successful touring or truly nomadic comedian throughout Europe and this day I would say throughout the world. It was done in March 2023. I saved this episode to be the opening episode for Season 2. But then Season 2 got massive delay. It was supposed to be released in October last year. I only have myself to blame. That's why you have to remember the context in terms of time was slightly off. It was a year ago when the discussion happened, and Victor is even more successful as a comedian touring Europe right now. Now bear that in mind and enjoy this episode. Hello, welcome back to another episode of Comedy with an Accent podcast. I feel like an extremely lucky Pokemon player today because I just caught a shiny Pokemon. I'm not talking about a shiny Pidgey. I caught a shiny Lapras sitting right in front of me. Yeah. It's an old good friend of mine. I don't use friend a lot. I call a lot of my guests friendly acquaintance, but I see you as my true friend. An old friend of mine who has been at large since 2020, Victor Patrascan. Welcome.
Hello, thank you very much for having me, man. I feel like a Magikarp.
A Magikarp.
Magikarp.
Because you need
the Pokemon.
So many of the, or you get angry, turn into a...
It doesn't do anything. Only when he evolves, he does anything, but otherwise he's just like a wet fish.
What's the name of the evolved dragon?
Is it the one like the Onyx, but in the water?
Because I watched Pokemon in Mandarin, so when I came here, I couldn't recognize any of them.
Isn't it the same names?
No.
Really?
No, the English version, they took a lot of English puns.
Yeah.
The name you have in Japanese or in Mandarin, that has nothing to do with the English name.
Oh, wow.
So, for example, Squirtle is a turtle that squirts, so it's Squirtle. Yeah. In Japanese, it's called Jenikame, means like Jenny turtle. So there's nothing to do with...
Because Squirtle, I used to date Squirtle.
I've done that joke before, so it's
Did
not.
You?
Yeah, it's not quite original.
Damn it. See, I should have watched the previous episodes.
I have a Facebook record that I dated a Pokemon fan, and he called me his little Squirtle. So
too late, really nice. Oh, damn it! See, great mind things alike.
True.
Think alike, yeah.
Okay, I feel like Victor is a shiny Pokemon because since 2020 he has been elusive. First of all, Victor is our second guest from Romania. Our first Romanian guest is a good friend of Victor as well, Radu Isaac.
Yes.
From Vaslui.
Yeah.
And where are you from?
I'm from Brăila, Galați. Like, I grew up in a small village.
Where in Romania?
Close to Galați. Like, very close to Radu, actually. We're like 100 kilometers away.
Okay, so
like
you're
this.
from the northeast of... You're from the Moldovan border.
Yeah, the south of Moldova, where like the south of the tip meets like Ukraine and Romania. That's kind of where I'm from.
That's a funny thing, though, because when you don't know someone and they say they're from the country, you most like to guess either from the capital city and the second largest city. So I would just guess you two are both Bucharesti, but you're not from Bucharest.
No.
Is it because so many Romanians have emigrated, so you get a large variety of Romanians?
Yeah, I meet Romanians everywhere I go. Like I was in Brussels a week ago. Everywhere I went, people spoke Romanian. Like I went to an Italian restaurant with an Italian friend. My friend was like, don't worry, I'll talk to the people here. It's great. We can get a good deal. My friend goes to the waiter, starts talking in Italian, and the waiter is like, what? Then my friend turns to French, and then they go like, oh, I understand French, just a little bit. And then we sit down to eat, and the guy starts talking to the other staff, and they're all Romanian.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is it to do with over. EU enlargement?
No, it's just like life is really shitty in Romania, so people leave.
Okay, let me put the question in a rude way. Have you Romanians spared at least one or two EU countries by not going? So you're literally everywhere. Are you like, we don't really care about Portugal. The money you can make there is too low, so we aren't going to...
I think here... Because I came back yesterday, and since yesterday, I feel like I'm turning into a UKIP member. I am actually actively telling immigrants, don't come here. Don't cross the channel. Don't risk your life. It's not worth it. The meal deals at Tesco's, not worth it. The shitty weather. What has happened to this country? I would recommend to anybody not to come here.
Okay, in terms of political situation, I cannot comment on, but the weather has always been this shine. I mean, there's no difference in the weather.
Well, at least life was
better. You brought
better.
the snow back. You come back, and then it's snowing in March day. It's not to do with UK's weather. The weather has always been shine.
But at least life was better.
In what way?
I don't know. It just feels...
Okay, for context, he does have a legitimate reason to criticize UK because you had been living here for how long?
8 years.
8 years. So he spent good 8 years here.
Yeah.
Paying taxes to a degree?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So he was a law-abiding, tax-paying, in quotation marks, citizen for 8 years. So he does have the right to criticize the UK.
But I can criticize any country. It's not like anything is going to happen. I feel like this is the attitude here. Why can't you criticize? It's like, you say something about you don't like something or you don't like another thing. It's not like you're going to start enforcing it into law.
No, I disagree with you. I think UK are quite okay with self-deprecating and accepting foreigners' criticism to an extent. And they're not too bad. Yeah. I mean, my countrymen, for example, are extremely sensitive.
Why do you think that is?
Because of our own insecurity, our inferiority complex.
Yeah.
When people do criticize you, it's too much to the bone, so you won't be able to take it. If you're not that insecure yourself, you're actually fine with some sort of simple jokes.
Yeah, I get in trouble a lot online when I talk to people in the crowd and then from various countries. Certain countries, they get really defensive and they just start spamming the comment section. It's like, well, for a Romanian to say this about Albania or Pakistan, I'm like...
Yeah, but there are a lot of different ways to look at it because you assume every country's default position and their red line should be this far. But for some country, they are just this close.
But this is the thing, because it's not a judgment on the people. The people individually are great everywhere, right? I can see the same sparkle of life and joy and love in every person from anywhere in the world. But the country, our countries are made up, right? Like just stories made up, borders are made up.
You sounded just a little bit like a Jehovah's Witness, one of those preachers, because you say every person is beautiful. No, some people are evil and horrible.
I think they just had bad childhoods.
Nah, I don't believe that. I mean,
do you
some
think
people.
If Hitler would have gone into our school, he would have started all that shit?
I've heard that theory before.
Yeah.
He's just a failed artist.
Yeah.
But without Hitler, there would be another one, either way.
A second Hitler?
So I'm not saying you're wrong. So this is one of the key things I want to say today. I admire so much of the craft you do, but always remember on certain topic, we always have disagreement. Not that we argue, it's just we do things differently in our way. One of the discussions we had about 4 or 5 years ago, we were doing this gig in Hove. You were told by the promoters not to call your audience stupid.
Yeah.
But you say, I'm the comedian, I perform. So why can't I call them stupid?
Yeah.
We end up having...
By the way, they were very...
And I admit they were stupid. The question is when the promoter asked to do it, whether or not. And the eventual disagreement we had is our definition of this profession.
Yeah.
You think we, comedy performer, we are artists. And I say, no, I think we are entertainers. Not to say you're necessarily right or I was necessarily right. It's just we have different take on the same thing. The facts are the same, but the interpretations are different.
Yeah.
So the underlying principle today, any difference in agreement doesn't mean I think you're stupid or I'm an idiot.
Absolutely.
It's just a different approach from different people on the same thing and the same fact.
I totally agree with this. And I think this is the extremism and lack of understanding in the way that people talk about the events that are happening does not have exactly this, what you're saying. Like, we can disagree, but we're human at the end of the day. We're empathetic. We're kind to each other. Sometimes we can disagree, but this is...
And there will be comedy punter that prefer your interpretation. There will be comedy punter that prefer my interpretation.
Absolutely, yeah. There's people with the capacity to understand both points of view.
Or there will be people say, I don't really care. Can we move on?
Yeah.
Stay away from this discussion.
Exactly. But going back to comedy, I think one can have like a personal attitude, the way that they go about their life, they go about treating other people, the way they vote. There is one way, and then the art is something else. It's always like an extreme version of the person, but sometimes it can be exactly the opposite. Sometimes I think it's funny, as what we do, stand-up comedy, to say exactly what I don't believe in.
Okay. So I'm going to pull you back because you are, as I expected, extremely intelligent. Any simple discussion, you have a tendency to elevate to a very high concept discussion.
Yeah. Please.
So we were describing where you're from, and normally when I introduce a guy, I go down a very shallow, IMDb way. This comedian has won this, been featured elsewhere. That
Haven't
feels...
won anything.
No. For me today, it feels incredibly irrelevant. No, you were finalists in Beat the Fraud, the World Series, for example.
Who gives a shit?
But for you, that's irrelevant. I want to really introduce Victor because I think out of our contemporaries, you are the first truly nomadic comedian. You are constantly on the road since 2020. You used to be London, UK based. Because of coronavirus, you're like, it. So you start traveling. Initially, you were doing smaller gigs, but now the momentum really come. You're doing large-scale, sort of fully seated gigs across continental Europe. Do you keep a log of how many countries that you have visited so far?
No, because I don't do it about that. Then I get caught up in the numbers, in the I need to do this. I don't like to think about things in have spreadsheets. And I know people who count every single minute. They log every single show they do, how many minutes they do, how many...
I just do the number of shows. I do the number of shows because I don't want my 1,000 show at a really shit show. I want it to be special.
There's a guy in Berlin who also does this nomadic style. He logs everything. And at the end of the year, he does a post saying that this year I've done this many thousands of minutes of stage time, this many shows, this many things. I don't like to think about it like that because then it becomes a numbers game.
But for some people, it's a need to quantify things, so to make it manageable. They find an overall large goal or milestone too overbearing, so they need to break it down to smaller ones.
For me, the way that I do that is I try to think a year or two ago on this day. So, for example, today, 8th of March, where was I last year? What kind of shows was I doing? Are the shows better now? Am I more confident? Am I expressing more ideas that I want to express? Am I doing new jokes? Are the shows bigger? Are there more people? So there is a level of that, but then when I put it in a spreadsheet, then it's just for my brain transforms into something else.
Would you say that's what drives you?
What do you mean?
The motivation of doing this I don't know, I think you enjoy it, but it is hard. It is tough as well.
But I don't have anything else to do. And I've realized that we're condemned to work. We have to work. So I have to do something. It can't just be simple. So I'm okay with that. Because the shows are so great, man. I love doing this and it's totally worth.
Do you think is there a trade-off at all? So you get a satisfaction from doing comedy shows in such an exciting and almost unprecedented way a lot of comics can't do. Did you feel like you did have to sacrifice something, but you're happy with the trade-off?
Yeah, I don't see it as a sacrifice.
Okay, you don't see it as a sacrifice.
No, I see it as this is part of life, so I have to decide to do something. And I started doing this in really small places, small venues, small shows, and then it's grown to a point where I cannot believe it's at.
Okay,
it's unbelievable.
Nowadays, I've come to a point when I think I'm going to restrict how much time I spend on going out gigging. And I want to stay in or meeting friends or just going to see theater or do different things other than comedy. And those are important for me. But also, I'm a hoarder. I basically cannot be in your situation. So where are your belongings?
With me. I have a backpack here with the equipment, and I have another backpack that I left in London with clothes.
Have you rented a storage place?
No.
Space?
I gave everything away.
Everything away?
Everything.
Not even one bedroom in your Romanian family home?
No. Gave everything, bikes, linen, all sorts of stuff that I didn't need. And now I've been living
That's why you didn't try to brand yourself by wearing the same thing, but you literally just have that few garments to wear.
Yeah, absolutely.
You basically have fewer belongings than someone who lives in a small mobile home, I suspect.
Yeah. I just have 2.5 weeks worth of clothes. And that's it.
And you prefer this lifestyle?
The experience is the best adventure that I've ever been on.
So my question is, there's a difference between you actually enjoying having very few belongings. Yeah. You enjoy not being tied to a fixed place.
I kind of
And the second one is your enjoyment of gigging like this is so much, it render all the inconvenience or the sacrifice irrelevant.
Just like the lady who went to her ISIS boyfriend. It's the love just blinds you of anything else. You're driven by that thing. And people find that type of passion and obsession in many things.
Would you describe your love for stand-up comedy as the moth flying towards the flame?
Yes. Yes, I know health-wise this is gonna kill me, but I wouldn't want to do anything else. It's a beautiful way to die.
have a staple first question, even though this is technically my 20th question. So, Victor, do you think you have an accent when you speak English?
Absolutely. Because I spoke another language for most of my life, right? Like for 21 years until I came here. So, of course, I'm not going to say the words in English how the locals say them. Absolutely. And I don't want to change it because this is how I talk.
Have you ever thought about changing it, but you changed your mind, or you never thought about changing it?
I considered it, and I immediately realized that this is who I am. Just like I'm not trying to hide.
What prompted you to even consider it in the past?
I heard other immigrants try to sound British, and it's just I have like it comes from the stomach. It's like, what are you doing? Who are you trying to fool? Why are you ashamed of yourself?
Do I know these people?
No, just random people, right? We all have accents. Everybody, even within the UK, has different accents, right? Like Cardiff has an accent different from Brighton, different from Newcastle, different from Liverpool, different from Birmingham. Everybody has accents.
Yes, but that is a very political correct way of looking at it. So when I mean accent here, is the accent that will make us judge and restricted and confined in a certain persona or stereotypes when we perform on stage. People who have a Southeastern or the RP accent, generally, they are free to do what they want to do quicker on stage because their accent doesn't make the crowd judge them that quickly.
Yeah.
Our accents do. In that sense, my second question is, do you think your accent is strong or mild?
It's strong.
It's strong.
Yeah. Even when I say strong, the R is very harsh. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to say one funny thing. The only Romanian people I know, especially in the comedy world, is one of my guests, Radu. I think it was episodes 6 and 7, and Victor. Both Radu and Victor have a bit sort of cartoony accent.
Yeah.
Radu once described his accent as the meerkat. Sergey. Radu said he didn't like that joke, but someone pointed out, so he has to do it all the time. Victor also has a villainy. When you perform, you sometimes crack and you put in a chuckle, but your chuckle is cute but slightly scary, like a Disney villain.
I find it strange that I'm a grown-up saying outlandish things to other grown-ups and they pull back. They have a reaction where like, oh, I'm like, this is hilarious to me that I've just said this gross, just absurd thing and you take it seriously.
But is this how you genuinely laugh in a private conversation?
Yeah.
So the story...
I'm not trying to force it. It just comes out.
So my conclusion was, I think this is how Romanian men sound like. Until before I had to interview Radu, I go on YouTube and listen to a lot of Romanian men talk. It's like, I thought all Romanian talk with very strong nasal twang and with that cartoony voices. It's not true. It's just you two.
I think
you two completely misled me how Romania is supposed to sound.
It's very strange because we're from similar parts of the country and I have so many things in common with Radu. It's really absurd. Like,
it's not even your regional accent, though. It's you two just tend to have this so slightly cartoony and sharper.
Because that's where we learned the language from.
Because you learn English from
cartoons. Both of us, watching Cartoon Network.
Oh, it makes so much more sense now. Radu didn't mention this.
Yeah.
So you've been watching like the Chipmunks and...
and Scooby-Doo. Yeah, stuff like that. Yeah. Absolutely.
So it could be Scooby-Doo that led you
it could be. Yeah. Jinkies. This is the thing that I wanted to ask you. I haven't been performing here in a while. I just came here for like a few spots here and there. I'm talking to immigrants. I'm talking to internationals. I'm talking to second language speakers in Europe where I usually do shows. I'm just like them. Nobody goes like, oh, this is a peculiar accent. They talk with an accent too.
No, but I want to ask, when you were based in the UK, at that time, did you go out to London often or do you mostly perform in London?
Mostly London. Not that much outside of London. I couldn't afford to travel.
Did you go to gigs where 95% of the audience are all British or locals?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in those gigs, what did you perceive? How did you deal with it?
Well, at the beginning, I refused to even mention the fact that I was Romanian because I thought that it just treat me like a human being. But then I realized it's just a question in their mind. Some people do it out of, I don't know, some ignorance or some types of xenophobia or something. But it's a natural thing for the locals. And they're just curious. It's a question on their mind that I have an answer, so they can't pay attention to what I'm saying because they're thinking about something else. So I've realized after a while that I need to mention the fact that I'm Romanian so they can calm down about that and they can listen to what I actually have to say.
That's exactly what most of the guests said. But how did you work it out?
I was bombing a lot.
until you try to mention Romanian, and suddenly bombing just stops so significantly.
Not less. The number it didn't stop. I bombed a lot.
It didn't stop, but it helped.
Yeah, because it was a question in people's mind. And I had to explain it to myself in this way, that I realized that English people ask other English people when they hear an accent, where are you from?
Yes.
And I was like, oh, then it's not vitriolic. It's just humane.
It can also be vicious. Like
Absolutely.
They ask where you're from,
entirely.
and they think, oh, your town is poorer than mine, so I can feel better than you.
They also go like, I know somebody from there. I went there. I read a book about it. I dated somebody from there. It's the start of a conversation because it's the only thing that you know about that person, how they look and how they sound.
I don't know how to describe this specific aspect of the British society. Mm-hmm. Whenever they talk to someone, they need to understand their relative position to you in terms of social class, geographical division. Before they work that out, they can't maintain a consistent, they don't know what to do with you.
Let me ask you this. Have you ever spoken to anybody outside of this country that does not do that? I think that's a natural thing everywhere. Like if you hear someone speak Mandarin and they speak with an accent, aren't you thinking like, where is that from? It's just a question. It's not like, oh, you're better than me or less than me, which could be part of the thing. I'm not denying that. But it's like if I hear Romanians with an accent, I go like, what town are you from? Or I hear like foreigners speak Romanian. It's so like fascinating. You're like, oh my God, you learned 2 words. This is fantastic. Where are you from? Then you start a conversation. At my shows, I ask people, what's your name? Where are you from? It's the first question that I ask, which is offensive here. But where I do shows, it's just immigrants.
Yes, I have a different take on this. I now start to run a show similar to the concept of this podcast called Comedy with an Accent, and I attract a greater amount of non-British people. Yeah. I will always say we are in an accent-safe space. So whenever I ask you, what's your accent, where you're from, I don't mean in a malicious way. I'm full of curiosity of your culture. At the end of the night, people tend to enjoy each other sharing. I didn't have to put that down to ease people's mind. However, though, in that situation you're talking about, at least how I function, sometimes when I hear an accent, the kind of judgment or social stereotype imposed on the accent will come straight to my mind, almost bursting it out. And then I thought, no, I don't know how I become programmed into thinking like this, but I shouldn't, so I will rein it back.
So I think what we're doing is we're stopping the whole conversation instead of just stopping the judgment.
So for example, I didn't know much about non-RP accent before I came to the UK. But living here longer, I start to associate certain accent for being thick, provincial. Then I thought, is it because linguistically those sound like that? Or have I just acquired something that's established socially and I'm just perpetrating a stereotype? Let me give an example. So I was in Manchester for a gig and the MC was trying to do some crowd work and there was a lady who spoke. She wasn't malicious. She was just a little bit disruptive. The MC asked her where she's from. And she said she's from Wales, the Valley. Instantly, the NC started to suggest she's so thick, she doesn't understand how to pronounce words properly. And the whole room was laughing with him.
Yeah.
And I thought that is really... I didn't like it.
That's the difference between what we do on stage. We're supposed to go to the line and even cross it. Because if you do that in normal life, like if you ask that type of question and you make that type of joke at work, then it's inappropriate because that's not the place to do that. But at a comedy show, there's nothing off the table. That's what I find about comedy.
That's where I disagree with you again.
Because here's where it comes from me, comedy. One of my earliest memories that I have of comedy is being at a family party and my uncle is telling dirty jokes in the living room. I'm not allowed to go in the living room because I'm a child. So I'm in another room with kids and I hate it. I remember people just having a moment in their life, maybe once a year, maybe twice a year, saying some things that they never say. It doesn't mean that they believe in those things or they entertain those things or they treat people like that all the time, but just for a moment. That's what we're doing. We're saying the things that cannot be said in normal life because in normal life, it just puts barriers in between people. For example, I meet people and they hear that I'm Romanian and they go like, so I should hide my wallet. Sometimes it comes from a mean thing, but sometimes that's a joke. They're just trying to do a joke. They just don't have the ability to realize that maybe it's inappropriate. And I understand it as a joke. Because if I say, man, that's offensive, the guy goes like, but you're a comedian. It's like, I'm just trying to joke with you.
So let me explain. I disagree with you. I'm not saying you can't do this or this type of comedy shouldn't exist. When I say what I disagree is that as a punter, I would not choose to go to a show that highlight this aspect of comedy. So for example, in your show, you specifically write down not for the easily offended, which I think is brilliant. You set out, this is my style of comedy. For those who want to be decent but who need a release, please come to my show. Because at my show, we can all relax and have a laugh. I personally don't like it. I may be hypocritical. Sometimes I take the piss out specific group, but I would be slightly more careful around certain group or certain topic. In this case, for example, someone has to be the butt of jokes and in a very long situation being bullied by a certain group of people. The whole room getting up, laughing about that Welsh lady's accent can be very cruel, even triggering. When she signed up for a comedy, it wasn't specifically set out that we may do this to you. When a show already marketed itself, say, we are not for the easily offended, and you still go, then you have a problem with that. You are the problem, not the show has a problem. In this case, because it was a very generic, it's a mixed field comedy, then it's in the gray area. Did the lady sign up for this? Well, debatable. Did the MC go too far? We don't know. Did the other people in the audience go too far? We don't know. If the audience enjoy it, but the lady also felt hurt, those two emotions are both genuine.
This is as an answer to that. I think if we take this thing seriously, then it becomes serious. I don't think this nationality, accent, all of these differences like gender, they don't matter, man. You know what matters? If people are nice and kind.
Yeah, but you see...
If they do the job, if they're reliable, if they're good friends, if they're good neighbors. For example, what I would think is maybe an appropriate joke is someone's parent just died. Someone had an abortion. Someone had a really traumatic event in their life. And they said, maybe it's not the time. This is actively hurtful about something that people are strongly emotional. They feel strongly about an event. And I think that could be in bad taste, right? But these things, man, the fact that I'm from Romania and you're from another country and another person is from another country, who gives a shit? We're people.
Yeah, but some people do. Okay.
But this is such a small, fine, superficial side of our identities that if we take it seriously, then it just becomes serious. And that's where nationalism starts from. That's
think
where
just telling people you're not supposed to take it seriously, don't take it serious is the panacea to everything. My personal experience when I started working here, there's a group of colleagues. I was their bully target. They will always disguise their mean bullying as a joke. Yeah. They will always say it's a joke. So because of those experiences, I am particularly annoyed when people say to me, don't take it seriously, it's just a joke. Even though half of them really didn't mean it. But I've experienced so much people actually mean it, but hiding behind it. In that case, we don't know what eventually happened with the Welsh lady. I didn't see her, I didn't go talk to her. My personal take, I think he went a bit too far. But I say nothing to the MC. I didn't name his name now. I didn't talk to the lady. I just make assessment of the situation. If I had been the MC, would I have done exactly the same thing? My personal choice is no, but I'm not going to impose on other people.
Let me ask you this. Probably because she was Welsh, but I feel like if there's a Bulgarian in the room or the Ukrainian or a Hungarian, it's like they're from my area. I know. This is the thing. Sometimes people come to me after the show and go like, why didn't you make jokes about Croatians? We were in the room. Why not about us? Do you not do this with your friends in a private WhatsApp message or in just conversation where you're just hanging out and you're having a drink and you're just laughing about things because you know your friends, their intent is not... This is what I'm trying to do with the comedy. I'm like, hey, we're all adults. We are all aware that there are horrible things in the world that people feel bad about. But between us, let's release the tension so then we can be kinder to each other after the show. Because what I try to do with the show, it starts like this. All of those silly jokes about, you're from this country, is like, whatever. That's the beginning of the show. That's how you warm up the thing. But then I try to take them on this journey where I tell them like, hey, remember at the beginning when we were laughing at the differences? Throughout the show, you're laughing. The person next to you who was from a different culture, they were laughing at the same thing. They were horrified by the same thing. So are we really that different?
You realize that you have to address your accent so that they will park the question.
Yeah.
Did you get any unsolicited feedback or comment and make you a little bit awkward or after the show or during the show on your accent when you were performing in the UK?
Yeah, people told me that I sound like the meerkat guy as well. Yeah. Like Count Chocula. Yeah, because it's like, that's how I sound. And it's fine. The Romanian language is Latin language with Slavic influences. So the harshness of the language comes from the Slavic influence on Romanian.
The Latins in the Sea of Slavs. Yeah. That's how they call Romania.
Yeah. But just like Rad, someone tells you that and you go like, oh, that's a joke. I'll keep that and I'll turn it into a better joke and I'll use it.
Yeah, but the difference is whether you move on from that as well or you get happy to stay there forever.
I left the country.
No, I was trying to praise you. I was still doing the setup for you. I said you didn't rely on those stereotypes. You get to even better jokes.
So this is the experiment with the tour that I'm doing right now, right? Because I've been on tour in Europe for over 2.5 years, close to 3 years now. It's the best experience that I've ever had in my life. Now I'm trying to take that show and bring it here and see if the British sensitivity regarding all of the concerns that you're raising is going to affect the show. Specifically, like tonight in Brighton.
Yeah, we are at the woke center of the UK.
Yeah. And I could feel it. I could feel it in the reception of the show, in the way that people comment on the show.
Is it an accident or you were determined to start with Brighton?
No, it's just a coincidental.
Because I just saw you added Bristol. I was like, what's it up to? Just going for all the woke places.
No, I'm just going to places that they would accept me. Because this is the thing. I'm seeing the fact that I'm Romanian affecting things much more outside of the UK. Because, of course, there are racists here and they have a party and they meet and they have Facebook groups and whatever. Just uncontestable. When I was talking earlier, I didn't even think that that's the question. Like, of course there are racists. Of course the people are really mean. But I think most of the time they're not. Most of the time they're just ignorant or they don't have like a social cues. But I'm seeing the fact that I'm Romanian affecting the shows in Italy and Spain and France because the Romanian community is huge and they hate Romanians.
Okay, actively hate.
In a way that's not really happening in the UK. For example, I was trying to get in touch with a venue in Rome. So now I have a tour manager. I was talking to her today and she said, like, I wrote to the venue in Rome. I said, like, oh, I would like to run an international show in English. And they were like, oh, fantastic. And then she sent information telling them that I'm Romanian. Nothing.
That's it.
Yeah. In Austria, I've had replies from venues saying we don't work with foreigners.
That's really interesting because UK may grumble, but they see Romania as cheap manual laborers, right?
Yeah. But go to France and speak another language. I did a show in Strasbourg like a few months ago, and I go into the shop. I say, hello, can I please have this? And they reply to me in French. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't speak French. Do you speak English? No. And they just threw the thing in my face.
Oh, but that's exactly why I left Paris. I used to study in Paris. I thought Paris was getting a lot better, but you were in Strasbourg, right?
Yeah. And I'm like, I'm a tourist. I'm here for a day. Do you think I'm going to learn your language just for a day? This is the attitude of the former empire. But this is what I've discovered about the British. While I was here, everyone's shitting on the British, the colonialism and all of this. And of course, they were part of it, really bad. What they did in India, horrible. What they did in many places around the world, very, very bad. But at the same time, the British were the first to abolish slavery. They were in a war with Brazil for 30 years because the British went, Brazil, we're not doing this anymore. And Brazil was like, no, we're keeping the slaves. And they had a war.
It's not all British. I would say a specific segment of British push it.
Yeah.
Compared to the French experience you had, I would say the French society, a lot of them do have a lack of self-awareness. I remember going to a bakery, this very enthusiastic American girl wanted to buy a croissant. In English, you say croissant, but French would say croissant, un croissant. So the girl say, je voudrais un croissant. It's very thick American accent, but everyone knows what she wants. And the lady behind counter is like, je comprends pas, je comprends rien. She's basically humiliating her.
Because they don't have this conversation about their colonialist past, right? For the lack of self-awareness sometimes of the British, there is this conversation about the atrocity that they've committed.
In case they spiral into another general discussion, what do you do in the end? Did you go to these countries to perform at all? Just find another venue they would take you? Or did it bug you a lot?
Yeah, but I'm not gonna live my life according to them.
Good for you.
This is the thing. Yeah, we're just going to live our lives and this is going to happen. It's not nice. Of course, the level of backlash because of the place that I'm from is not the same as other people. I know people that have much bigger problems and much worse stories because of their skin color or the country that they're from or the religion that they are. This is why I'm thinking for the rest of the people who are understanding and accepting, we're living our lives according to the minority. That's horrible. This is not a way to live.
This was covered on a podcast Victor did with Turkish Swiss comic Ahmet.
Oh, okay. You listened to that?
Yeah,
okay.
You had a lot of coronavirus talk. But you explain why you left. Basically, COVID restricted you to a very small room. You don't want to waste your life. So COVID changed you. Without COVID, you probably wouldn't have made up your mind, say, it, and I'm just going to sell all my stuff and be on the road.
Absolutely.
Do you ever feel lonely?
I'm around people all the time, but...
You say that you have the best interaction with human beings possible. You meet them at a gig, you make them laugh, and you can just go.
Yeah.
You don't need to do all the other courtesy stuff. But do you wish you still have other interaction a bit deeper or more long-term with someone?
Well, it's, for example, like being here and just talking to you. It's like, it's nice because I'm visiting old friends. And sometimes I go back to the places and this is... I don't know. Not really. No, sometimes maybe at some points, but most of the times I'm like, I'm concentrating on like trying to get to the next place.
You are the first guest that has been mentioned before you're interviewed. You've been mentioned on 3 occasions by 3 guests.
What?
Yes. So obviously Radu will mention you. When I interviewed Thor, that was episode 2, he had a whole chunk basically on the basis of your joke.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he said that when Victor did that joke, he really spoke to me.
Yeah.
And the joke was, before I came to the UK, I was just a guy, and now I'm a Romanian. And he quoted the whole thing. And I had to cut out reference to you because I don't know whether Victor is happy for us.
This is the best compliment that you can give a comedian.
And the third reference was from Hubert. He was totaled by the comedy store for talking jokes about not being Austrian related. The owner said, do more Austrian jokes. And he's like, no, I'm not going to do that because Radu and Victor are both great comedians. They had the same feedback from him. So it. So you've been mentioned by 3 guests.
Oh, that's very kind of them. Yeah, it's really funny.
Yeah, that's why some people think very, very highly of you.
This is like...
You did very smart stuff. But when you were gigging in the UK, you have more or less a fixed position. The foreigner telling your story and in a way how you look at the UK. How did that change after you are on the road? Because you're no longer fixed to one position.
I perform to foreigners. Basically, the makeup of every crowd that I perform in, like more or less, is a few locals, a few Romanians. The Romanian community, the diaspora, is very supportive. I don't do the shows in Romania because the Romanians don't really like what I have to say. And the rest of the crowd is just people from all over the world.
I have this question noted down because I noticed on all your clips on Instagram, there are always multiple nationality in the room. Has there ever been a gig where there are 80-90% the indigenous population? No.
Yes, Ukraine, because all the foreigners left because of the war. So I went to Ukraine in December last year to do shows for charity. We raised some money for 2 charities. One, Serious Animal Shelter, which people can still donate to. It's an animal shelter an hour outside of Kiev. When we were there, they had like 3,500 animals that were either abandoned or run away because of the war. And the other charity was called Voices of Children, which is based in Donetsk in East Ukraine.
Is Donetsk still occupied or have they got it back?
No, it's still occupied. And what's happening on the occupied territories is just horrible. Like they're kidnapping children. They are mass murder. It's really horrible. I think Ukraine, I went there with a Dutch friend, Fedor Kelar. We drove into Lviv and then we went to Kiev and Chernovitz. Foreigners are not there anymore. They left. We had some foreigners, like 2 or 3 in Lviv, and I think a few in Kiev. But it's very weird. Like some of them were like journalists. Some of them were actually volunteers in the Ukrainian army. I was actually talking to a Canadian guy who was like, I'm here to fight for Ukraine.
Sorry, I'm taking away from Ukraine. It's a separate subject. Basically, you build a brand so that all the shows you do, people come to see an international cross-cultural discussion. So you're constantly facing an international crowd, basically. European-heavy international crowd.
Yeah, because the show is in English in non-English speaking countries. So the shows that I'm doing are for groups of friends, like sometimes groups of friends of like 10, 15 people. Every single individual is from a different country. They communicate through English among themselves. Couples that are from different countries. Like I fondly remember this couple I met in Munich. She was from Belarus, he was from Peru. It's like opposite sides of the world. They spoke English at home and there was nothing for both of them to do together. So they come to see me.
Is there something that you miss you used to be able to do, but you're not quite able to do right now because the whole angle of you as a performer and your dynamic with the audience change?
No. The audiences are smarter in Europe.
I've heard this on the podcast you did as well. You say that's because to be able to enjoy a comedy show in a second language, they need a certain level of education and intellect.
Know English as a second language at a level where you can go to a comedy show where there's wordplay, there's references. People are well-read. They're very aware of what's happening in the world. I can talk to them about anything from like Andrew Tate to gender theory to concept of nationality. Much more complex stuff than I can do here because here everybody speaks English.
Are there words now beyond the level of general understanding? So for example, everyone will know gentrification.
Yeah.
Because even though it's a big word, it's a popular trendy word. Let's say,
It's
for example, hypochondriac. Is that a word you can use at every gig?
Yes. Last time I was in the UK, top secret, and I said the word chromosome, lost half of the audience.
So that's the word that's too far.
Yeah, here, but not in Europe. In Europe, it's part of the show.
See, the irony. So native speaker, they know the language, but just the common words, not the more...
So what I've seen in people from the UK come into Europe and do shows, the difference is the local vernacular, local references, local words. For example, pop. People outside the UK don't know that that's soda.
Like a pub.
Pop, P-O-P. Soda pop.
I don't know what that is.
See, this is the thing. Like, I've seen so many comedians from London come into Europe and talk about Croydon. And people are like, what is a Croydon?
That is just laziness. You should at least do research on local geography.
That's the linguistic barrier. Another thing that I've noticed about language, for example, when you talk to a native speaker, this is what I've noticed. They realize that maybe your comprehension is not as astute as they hope.
Yeah.
The way that they simplify the language is they make it to the level of
GCSE or even lower.
Working class, like full of slang. Because that's what people here who don't understand fancy words, that's the language that they speak.
But that's not helping.
But that's not helping us because we know the English language from books. So in order to make it accessible to people like us, second language speakers, they need to be book English. Queen's English, like proper, grammatical.
In my first job, one of my tasks is to remove too local a reference.
Mm-hmm.
And I would constantly tell off my colleague that they got defensive, but I need to say, if you can use a generic term, don't use the idiom. If you say, please send it to me by the end of the day, that's absolutely fine. When you say, please send it to me by I think it's called close or play.
Yeah.
It's unnecessary, it's counterproductive. For you, it's straightforward. For us, it is not. English is not just used by English-speaking people. It's a global language right now. Have you been back to the same country, same venue with the same show?
Yeah.
Was the crowd of different people?
Sometimes people come to the show and then next time I go, they bring their friends.
Oh, so they come back to watch the same show again.
Yeah.
You know that you had a clip about a girl, she wasn't reacting much because that, you told the same joke. And you had a brilliant response, I'm sorry, but have you been to Romeo and Juliet? It's been the same.
Yeah, for 500 years. The weird thing was she came to a show in Tallinn, I did in Estonia, and then 3 days later to the same show in Helsinki.
Oh.
Yeah.
So you haven't really got to the situation how to decide a cutoff line between two different shows.
I don't really start from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
I like the organic side of it, the evolution, the jokes evolve like...
Okay, so is Donde está la biblioteca still in the show?
No. I use that in crowd work because it's like if I talk to Spanish people,
And Chicken Cross the Street?
Oh, I haven't done that road. And I really...
That's my memory of your old set. What about the one you wake up and pee?
No.
You don't do that anymore.
I don't even remember that one.
You say Romanians are weird. You just put it like a decanter next to your bed and you...
Oh, yeah. Oh, no. I haven't done that in a really long time. That's very nice of you. Yeah.
So my question is, your social media clips, they are typically crowd work. Is that a conscious decision to not expose your gags?
Well, because I'm still using them in the show.
You only post crowd work. What are the considerations?
Not burning material.
Yeah.
And I know there's a specific type of audience member that comes to the show and they watch everything that I have online.
And the reason I asked that, there's certain, I wouldn't say a backlash, but people start to say a lot more comedians are joining the game, which I also have to try to post videos regularly. But a lot of people choose to concentrate exclusively on crowd work. So people start to come because they want to enjoy that.
The crowd work, yeah.
The crowd
work.
So
that's part of the show. I think it was like probably 4 or 5 months ago when I constantly decided, okay, this is my weakest part. out of the big comedy things, this is probably my weakest, the crowd work. So I've always done a little bit of crowd work at the top of the shows, but just very basic, like 5 minutes. Hey, let's just get on with the show. But then I decided, like, let's see if I can do this and how I can do this. And at the beginning, I'm seeing it's very basic. Oh, you're from this country, like the cheapest joke. But the more that I do it, the more comfortable that I get, the more fun it is, the more inventive. What I've realized, what social media is the social part. The way that I try to look at it is there a human moment in there. It's like, oh, this is an interesting conversation, and then they scroll down to the next one. And maybe out of 100 videos that I have, 20 are really funny, maybe 20 are so-and-so, and then maybe a lot of it is filler.
So you are aware of...
Absolutely, yeah. But I do the editing myself on the road. Sometimes I'm like, whatever I can find, I'll just edit it down and I'll just post it. So I'm totally aware of that. At the same time, this is the thing that I love about comedy. This is one of the big philosophical things that comedy has taught me. At the beginning, it's going to be bad. Anything that I've ever tried...
You need to go there first.
Yeah. To be comfortable with just being exposed.
You need to learn to walk and fall before you can
and
run.
And being exposed that, man, sometimes it's not all great. You know what I mean? But that's the social media. It's not just killer. Sometimes it's just, okay, this probably wasn't as fun as the previous one. But you know what I really like? Sometimes people discover my account and I see people liking it for 3 hours. One video, and then 2 minutes later another video, and 2 minutes later another video. I'm like, these people are watching the entire, like all of the things that I've just, at some point, I'll go through them and edit it down and remove the ones that I'm like, okay, this is probably...
I didn't expect, because I was so afraid. I was like, how am I going to ask you this question?
Oh, no, of course. Like, I'm totally aware of it.
I'm particularly unsure about the one you went. I think the Germans are one of your prime target. So there was one clip when a South African lady says she dates her German partners because of his accent. Obviously, we make the joke about German accent sounds terrifying. Yeah. We are linking the Nazis. And you are asking him, so how do you say Arbeitsmarktfrei?
Uh-huh.
I mean, I'm not going to say it's not funny, but I think there are smarter way of doing it.
Of course,
part of me was like, Victor, you're better than this.
But I am better than that if I sit down and I think about what is the best way to do about it.
Yeah.
But in the show was in Frankfurt and they were late. They came from church.
Oh.
Right?
So now here, even you admit it wasn't the best take on the situation.
Yeah. Of course, it's cheap. Like, here's the thing. I was in Hamburg 2 days ago. The best part of the show was there was a German guy in the front row. My God, I think I did like 7 minutes of Nazi jokes. And it was like he kept feeding me all sorts of things because he knew. Like sometimes you meet people and they're feeding you stuff and I'm like, I need to do a Nazi joke.
But because he enjoyed it or he didn't want to, but accidentally give you...
It was the best part of the show.
Oh.
Yeah, because everybody in the room, international, they all like do these jokes. This is the thing. The jokes that I have written and that in the show, those I try to do my best to have interesting angles, interesting punchlines. That's the art, right? This is just off the cuff. Oh, you're from here. The first thing that comes to my mind is Nazis. I'm going to say that. And it's the human bad side.
It's human bad side, but as a comedian, I think if these are German punters, and the easier joke means that it's likely they've heard it from more comedians and they were so tired of the same observation. So if I don't have a new take, then I will consider not to do this.
Here's the thing. This is what I've realized when I'm doing crowd work. If there's even at the back of my mind, oh, I can't say this, then it ruins the whole experience. So I have to say the first thing that comes to my mind. And then the more that I say it, the more punchlines I have in my head, the more that I think about that subject, the more that I research about that culture.
How often did this thing you say went too far and made the gig not salvageable? That you alienated the crowd and you just could not pick it back up afterwards. How often did that happen? Because you don't censor yourself so much.
I don't think it's... I've had a thing that I got into really bad trouble a few months ago with an Albanian guy where I did a joke about him being like a tourist in Belgium. And I was like, how can you afford to be a tourist in Belgium? What kind of trafficking do you do? Is it drugs or people? He got upset. I realized that he got a little bit upset because he wasn't really aware of stand-up comedy and the format and everything. Anyway, the conversation went into a really uncomfortable place, but I thought it was funny because at the end, it ended up being funny. I spoke to the guy at the break. He was totally good, but I put the video online. It went viral, 2 million views in like a day, and I got death threats.
angry viral or okay.
Angry viral.
I think it's because Albania, they have to go through extra security check when they apply for certain visa. So that kind of accusation, you're all criminal, really hit home
the
for
joke
them.
was about like Serbians as well. So it was about like a war that happened 30 years ago.
Okay, right.
Well, less than 30, 20 years ago. And like veterans started writing to me. And I'm like, I don't want to do it. This is not the reason why I do this.
When ethnic cleansing was involved, that is not that straightforward.
Yeah. So I do get into trouble, but most of the times people know that that's like, I tell them, hey, we're going to cross the line deliberately. So let's just enjoy this knowing that this is what we're doing here.
What do you think what you are to them? Basically, lots of expats. What are you to them on stage? You're different from the regular comedian they see, but are you that different? What do you think how they perceive?
I hope I am.
Yeah, but what do they see you? Can you map it out?
I don't
What are you to them?
I don't know.
I'm sorry, the question sounds wanky, but I don't know how to put it better.
Different things for different people. I never think about that. I try to be I'm concentrating on what I'm trying to do, and I hope they're receptive to what I'm trying to do. And I hope it finds it funny, because aside from all of the pretentious bullshit about humanity and accepting and all of these things being social constructs and just stories that we tell ourselves, I hope it's funny. I hope they laugh.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to do. Cross the line to see, hey, can we laugh at this? And can we have a conversation about this? Can you come to the show and then argue with your partner on the way home about the jokes? Oh, I like this, I didn't like this. That's what I hope they see.
And is a beard a conscious choice, or just can't be bothered to shave?
I am a bum, so I should look like a bum.
Bum?
A bum, yeah.
What is a bum?
It's just someone that doesn't have a home. I live on the street.
I've never heard of that term before.
Yeah.
Okay. It's on brand.
Yeah. This is my life, and I think I should look accordingly.
Okay. I would just think it's one inconvenience.
It's also very convenient and very lazy of me. It's very warm.
If you go down on someone with lots of discharge, it's going to linger on you.
Yeah. We went back to Squirtle.
Went back to Squirtle, yeah. Let's just do this part first. How do people find you on social media?
Just like if they type my name in any
do spell it out. I don't think everyone can spell your name.
Patrascan.
But you remove the accents.
So
anglicize your name
because it's one of those names that in the UK everyone was like, why would you use this name? For English native speakers, this is a nightmare, trying to spell my name, trying to look me up. A thing that I wanted to say about this whole, like, being a weirdo, this is like being a foreigner in this country. This is one of the things that I left the UK with. Mm-hmm. The impression that I was treated like I have horns.
Horns?
Yeah. This was my experience. On one side, the people on the right, they were like, people with horns don't belong in this country. You should go back to your country, whatever. But then on the other side, the people on the left, they were like, it's so beautiful you have horns. We should celebrate the horns and see the beauty in the horns. It's so beautiful that we're all different, but you have horns. And I was in the middle going like, I don't have horns. I'm like you.
Okay, this is my last word, and please do see it as from a friend. Before that, a question.
I should shave.
No, I think that looks great. Be who you are. But is there a risk doing this on the road comedy long term? You may leaning too close to the hermit side, or it's not a problem to become a hermit?
Yeah, I do feel like I'm missing out on normal life.
I really enjoy this chat with you, but to sit down with someone chatting for more than an hour, you don't have that all the time right now, do you? No. It's more difficult.
Yeah. So that's why it's nice to kind of come back to places and come back to people that I've known a long time and have a conversation, because we know each other and we know the intent that is not malicious.
Yes.
And we know we can talk about uncomfortable things while disagreeing, but still maintaining a human relationship.
Yeah. So what I'm so happy about is that ultimately it's about comedy being funny. It's about being funny and making people laugh. Because your style comedy might veer towards that way, or some people similar to you really do the late George Carlin thing, to see themselves as a thinker and philosopher and preach. Because you are very intellectual, you think a lot. It's very soothing to know your focus ultimately is on comedy.
Absolutely.
Rather than imposing this worldview
That's
on
secondary.
other people.
But also, the reason why I'm so fascinated with comedy and I fell in love with it at the beginning was seeing Rock and Carlin and Pryor talk about things that I've never heard people talk about. I'm like, you can do this? And you see from the conversation, I'm not trying to be more philosophical than I'm in normal life. This is how I see the world. This is the comfortable place that I'm in, thinking about, okay, what does culture mean? What does it mean to be human? What does race mean? What does gender mean? What does religion do to us? This is what I...
Yes, and what I appreciate the most from the conversation today is you have so much humility listening to people who disagree with you. A lot of comics, where they hone their craft to a certain extent, they know how to shape their worldview with some jokes. They become this object that doesn't take in any more things. All they have to do is explore their worldview. And that's what I find that comedy stops. It's through the talk. People realize there's so much intellect and humility behind your facade of that thick beard. I'm so glad you didn't turn into a comedy job hardened witness. I don't know if that's a polite way to end the podcast, but that's my conclusion. Yeah.
Maybe I will. Maybe that's the journey
and
that
if
I'm
you
on.
will, I will tell you.
Yeah, please do.
But if you don't like it, I will still tell you.
But this is the other great thing that I love about comedy. The audience keeps you in check. They'll tell you like, hey man, this is a weird idea. But here's what I've discovered. Like getting into trouble about some of the jokes, it really made me go like, okay, what am I trying to say with that? Is there anything that I'm trying to say? Is this just gratuitous? If it's just gratuitous, because the thing that I had with the Albanian guy, it's not worth like this type of backlash. It's like a stupid joke. It's not worth it. I'm not trying to prove anything. It really makes me go like all the time that I get into trouble. I have like a really long bit about gender. The basics of it is I think that we are more similar than we are different. Yeah. Which is like a banal statement. But I've had people get angry at it. Like I remember when I was working out this bit in Berlin, I said, this is all I said. I believe that men and women are more similar than they're different. Someone in the crowd went like, you. I'm like,
this whole gender debate has been so polarized. There's no ground for a middle discussion, so I stay away from it. But I know exactly what you mean.
That's where I like to go. It's like, oh, this is uncomfortable. Let's see why it's uncomfortable. Is there anything interesting that we're not talking about there? Because I think there's lot
you're ultimately the moth flying to the flame, and sometimes you get burned. And don't say they didn't warn you.
No, and I know this. I got into trouble all my life for doing jokes. And most of the time, inappropriate jokes and bad jokes. I'm not used to this, but some of these instances have really made me look inside my heart. Where am I going with this? What am I trying to do? Is it worth it? So, yeah.
So I hope whoever listened to this episode podcast, you know a bit more about Victor behind the jokey persona, the humility and the thought behind it. Yeah. As I say, he is as elusive as a shiny lapras. So if he's in your town, go see him. And on that note, that's the end of this episode. Thank you very much for listening.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much. And thank you for having this conversation with me.
And also,
I really
time
appreciate
is up. We really should let time.
All right, let's go.
Let's go.